noon hour is here.
Check it out.
And you're locked on to Utah's highest rated, most listened to sports radio station.
It's my station. It's my station.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It is a Monday. It is time to make the donuts. It is Hans Olsen. It is Scott Gerard. Hope you are all well. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic, and I am excited to be back home. I am excited to be safe, and I'm excited to get our Monday show started.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot to talk about.
I always enjoy kicking off a Monday, seeing your face, being able to talk sports with one of my best friends on the planet, and then getting yelled at by Lloyd.
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
You're too loud.
Turn your mics down.
A tradition unlike any other.
Is this the first time you guys have done radio?
Lloyd, I was on headset for how long?
I know, but you guys don't talk at the same levels when we do a test. It really isn't.
Well,
none of the hosts do.
We still love you.
So when we go on air, the levels are completely different.
Lloyd, I love you.
Even through the yelling.
Yeah. And Lloyd was like, because I always know that Lloyd's mad at me when he answers the phone and goes, "This is Lloyd." And so I called him this morning, and he goes, "This is Lloyd." I'm like, "Wait a minute, it's a Monday."
I hate when he does that.
Like what have I done? And
you know, gosh darn good and well, we know who the hell it is. We dialed your phone number. Gosh, he does that to me every time. There's Lloyd. I know who it is. Reaching your secretary.
Go for Lloyd.
It's only a matter of time till we get the secretary.
Oh, I know it's coming.
Yeah, but he's like, "You're making it really easy for me to be mad at you these days." And I'm like, "Wait, what?"
Wow. Okay. You know what?
I just wish you would respond every once in a while.
Okay, hold on. We need to do a little house cleaning here because Lloyd is letting his Raiders fandom get in the way.
I didn't. There was no high. There was nothing last
your
night.
Denver Broncos mistreated them. And you can agree, your Denver Broncos absolutely used, abused, and intruded.
Easy. They barely got by a team that's trying to lose. What are you talking about?
Lloyd.
They barely got by a team that's trying to lose. Hey, when you win 8 in a row against your rival, come talk to me. Then come talk to me.
What is that in reference to?
By the way, Lloyd, did I talk to you? Did I say anything to you?
No, I didn't say you did.
There was no high.
But you can't
there was
do this
nothing.
on Monday.
There was nothing. I didn't say any. I didn't even bring it up. I never talked to you. I didn't even text you.
I know, my fellow Raiders fan. The guy that just lives and dies with the Raiders brought it up.
Why are you bringing me? Like, didn't talk to me when you win 8 in a row. Like, I didn't. I haven't talked to you.
I'm also sort of talking to Hans because Hans is kind of a closet Broncos fan too.
So I don't want to have your friendly fire today. I don't want to be taking strays from you. Like I was, my 13-year-old's like, "What are we doing to Lloyd? What are we doing to Lloyd? Let's go." And I'm like, no. Look, we had 8 straight games of him being a jackie every game. You know what we're gonna do? When he aims low, we aim high. We don't.
You took the Kalani path.
We don't punch down. That's what I told him. You don't punch down.
You know what? Those are great words that you something I learned from you at times.
I'm dying. I can't even get it. I love this so much. Because Lloyd, just for a second, he lost himself. He cried in the studio for just a second.
I know, right?
With his, you talk to me when there's 8 in a row. He cried for a second in the studio right there. And it's like, dang it, man. I'm sorry. The only reason I brought it up is because Scotty's got his Denver Broncos lanyard that 2-inch wide lanyard that has Broncos and the whole "Let's Ride."
The face paint didn't quite come off. Yeah, there's still remnants of that.
I'm dying.
Meanwhile, Christian has this awful tie-dye Broncos shirt. I'm like, what is that?
Oh my gosh!
It's an absolute eyesore.
Well, it looks like injury took care of the Minshew issues.
Yeah, broke that collarbone.
So that at least we'll see how Desmond can do.
Just when I start questioning the good Lord, he goes and does that.
Then you got the Midnight Riders, or Ridders or whatever.
It's the Midnight Ritter.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, are you related to A.J. Cole at all, Lloyd, the punter?
You know, I always tell Xavier, every time there's a Cole, like the Cole that's on the hockey team, I said, "Hey, there's our cousin. He's playing well." I always say it's my cousin. He's really? That's our cousin? I said, yeah.
I think the Broncos are a playoff team.
Can I just
with a rookie quarterback?
Can I just say how nice? Look, I don't know what the future holds for Bo Nix, but just for right now, it's nice to have a little stability at that position and have a guy that isn't flat out embarrassing. Like, there's been a lot of years since the Peyton Manning era came and went where it's just been a joke at that position, and now to be like, okay, this guy isn't completely terrible. He's not horrible.
Well, the other thing that I came out of this game feeling was he's very sustainable, and I'm going to tell you why. At the college level, Bo Nix was such a mixture. He had to get out and run.
Yeah.
He had to move out a lot. He didn't sit in a pocket and deliver a ton. He did some. He did, and he was okay at it. But my fear with where Denver took him is he going to think that he's got to run everywhere and can run everywhere? Because every quarterback that thinks that from college to the NFL gets a really rude awakening the first time a 6'5", 268-pound defensive end that runs a 4.75 40 hits you like a Mack truck, and you're like, oh, that felt horrible.
Hurt. I didn't like that.
I felt that one time in my college experience. Well, yeah, that one time is now every time, because that one time you got hit was a second-round draft pick that you played when you went against USC.
Yeah.
And that guy is now every guy in this league, and that's how they hit. And these quarterbacks are like, oh, geez. So you either stop running and stick around and learn how to throw, or you keep running, get injured, and you're never available.
Yeah, RG3.
And what Bo Nix is showing me, at least he showed me a little bit in that game yesterday, I can do this from the pocket. I can do this. You know, he moves well. I like how he navigates the pocket, but I feel better about him having a 6 or 8 year stay in this league because he can throw.
Yeah, and by the way, hey, Lloyd, who's number 7 on your defense? Because he's a problem.
Oh, in the backfield.
Trayvon,
in the backfield,
isn't it? Isn't that Mooring?
I don't know, but boy, he was.
I think it's Trayvon Mooring.
He's a problem.
But don't call me a super fan. But I do believe it's Trayvon Mooring.
Yeah, he was all over the place. He and Max Crosby were delivering all kinds of problems out there, like they always do to Denver. But ultimately, at the end of the day, Denver got it done.
Just don't hold that against me.
Yeah, sorry. Who are you to know everybody on this roster?
I'm just going to tell you, secretly, a little piece of me died last night or yesterday when the Raiders got abused. Just a little piece of me. Is it Trayvon?
Yeah, you nailed it.
Well,
Good job, superfan.
I said don't call me a super fan.
No, you are a super fan.
I'm not a super fan. Super fan hands.
By the way, you and I, well, let's throw Lloyd in this too, because Lloyd was up late with that Utah post-game show, but I was in Kansas City calling basketball on Friday, back in Logan calling football on Saturday. You were down in Phoenix on Saturday, leaving right after the show to get down there and calling a crazy game. Lloyd was up late. I mean, we had you covered from top to bottom with a lot of stuff this weekend.
A lot of eyes on these games and a lot of time spent. And Tempe was crazy. I've got a couple of thoughts on the game. I've got one area in particular I want to start because everybody's kind of jumping on Aaron Roderick. Everybody's jumping on Jake Retzlaff. I'm not here to stop that jump.
Yeah.
I'm just here to try to make sense of a couple things, if you don't mind.
Let's do it. Hans and Scotty starting lineup right now.
This is Hans and Scotty G.
Let's go.
The lineup is set, and it's time to kick off the show with the biggest topic of the day. This is the starting lineup on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It is your starting lineup, brought to you in part by Mountainland Supply, where the pros go for plumbing, landscaping, irrigation, agricultural irrigation, and the whole shebang. Water runs through it. Mountainland's got you covered. Find a location near you at mountainland.com. Well, the losing streak is now 2 for BYU. Back-to-back losses, another heartbreaker for the Cougars. Coming down the stretch, and Hans, I was keeping an eye on that game while I was calling that Utah State game, and I'm seeing Jake Retzlaff move that offense down the field. I'm thinking they're going to score a touchdown, they're going to win this game, and they're going to right the ship. And then an overthrow gets intercepted, and everything falls apart at that point, even though the ending of that got really weird.
Got really weird, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. I went back and watched that and then saw the highlights of Dillingham screaming at officials and calling them every name in the book at the midfield amongst all the fans that were out on the field.
By the way, I sent out a tweet that was right there when kind of as they were trying to get everybody off the field. And anybody that listened to my call, you could hear it in my voice because I had a direct view on Dillingham, like direct view. He was right down under our booth, right next to the video review. So I had a really good view. And I was watching his hands fly, and I was watching him do the throat cut gesture, saying "game is over." And you could hear me in the call. I started to escalate a little bit because the more dramatic he got, the more I'm like, "How are you not throwing a flag?" Well, I understand why you don't throw the flag in that moment because you've got a mob mentality going. So you don't escalate by throwing the flag in that moment. So what you do is you wait for that moment to disperse. You walk on the field before the start, you throw the flag, and you say 15-yarder, whatever.
Dude, he was berating.
He was going bonkers.
And now that we have video of the language he was using, holy smokes.
So I sent out a tweet, and all it said was, "No flag."
Yeah.
Question mark.
Yep, I saw it.
Well, for a second, I was like, I might delete that because I wasn't close enough to hear. I could see everything that was happening. With all of the crowd that came out, I saw that the Sun Devil mascot. Like I saw him on the field. You see people that aren't supposed to be on the field when a game is not over. That's illegal, let alone a coach freaking out. But I sent out a tweet that said, "No flag?" Question mark. And for a second, I thought, man, maybe I ought to delete that. But then I'm like, you know what? I saw it. I felt good about it. That should have been flagged.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
that puts you at what, the 36-yard line?
36. Yeah. The 36-yard line changes everything. The 36-yard line is where you were against Oklahoma State.
Yeah. From a play caller standpoint, everything's pretty much on the table.
Well, the biggest part of being at the 36 is pass interference comes into play.
Yep. Back shoulder pass into the end zone.
Yep. So instead of 50-50 ball, playing 500 in the backyard, because that's what a Hail Mary becomes. Everybody turns towards the ball, and the whole excuse is, no, we're all going at the ball, so I'm trying to get position. Receivers are trying to position, so they don't throw flags typically on Hail Marys. But when you're running routes and you go to cut and break and a guy tugs your jersey while that ball's in the air, you get these 50-yarders. It could have definitely changed things. But you're right. The Kenny Dillingham thing was crazy. It's just crazy. A lot of things that came out of all this is crazy, but people are pretty upset with Aaron Roderick. You can hear the noise getting louder and louder. People are pretty upset with Jake Retzlaff. You hear the noise getting louder and louder. And people want to understand, well, why don't you do in the second half why don't you do in the first half what you did in the second half? People are asking that because, you score 3 points in the first half, and then you go out in the second half. You put up 14 points in the third quarter and 6 points in the fourth quarter, and people are like, well, why not that? Because there was a hurry-up. There was a boom, boom, boom. It's like a system to it. And Retzlaff gets in a flow, and the receivers were in a flow. And I went back and watched. And what I can tell people is Arizona State changed defensively. They changed into a buffer defense. Chase Roberts said differently in the postgame because I asked Chase, did they change things? He said, no, I don't think so. I think they did. I think that they were backed off. They weren't pressing as hard. They did press a couple of times to bring some pressure. In fact, they pressed on one of the plays I'm about to reference and where this conversation is all going. But I think that they changed them. So I do want to take the defensive aspect into account, okay? Because you're not going to get that defense against Houston. Because people are like, well, I want to see 4 quarters against Houston. Well, okay, Just understand Arizona State's defense had a purpose at that point, and they were trying to deliver their purpose. It changed from first half to second. It changes when you're up 21-3. It changes when you feel like you've got an offense that can score almost at will, because they were doing nothing. The only stop they had in the first half was a deflected interception. Outside of that, BYU didn't stop them. So they were just going all over the field. So they changed some of the mentality. Now people are like, but wait a second. When you're in that hurry up, Retzlaff looks more comfortable. Roderick looks more dialed in. Defenses look more on their heels, which I would very largely agree with. But, and this is a gigantic but, this is a massive but.
Yeah, baby got back.
Jake Retzlaff loses games in pressured situation on hurry-ups. That's it. He actually threw 2 picks. Before that one was actually caught, he threw another pick that should have been out to Darius Lassiter, where I think Lassiter got kind of stuck or dug down in the ground, and it was just over the head of the corner that was sitting over the top, just over the head. It should have been a pick. So that was like 2 or 3 plays before the interception.
Before the actual pick.
Before the actual pick. And I had forgotten that until I went back and watched, and I'm like, oh my gosh. He was throwing heat, and it was lightning, and they scored those 14 points, and it was great. And they scored that other touchdown, and that was great. That fly sweep to Keelan Marion. So great blocking. That was great. And you're running and gunning, but my goodness, you go back to Oklahoma on the pick 6 and the return. You go back to that Utah game where, you throw the pick, and if things don't go your way with a holding call at Utah, you lose that game. And, you go to the Kansas game off that pick. I think Aaron Roderick knows who he's dealing with.
So he's doing his best to protect him.
I think he's doing his best all the way around.
Yeah.
So when I watched that second half, I'm like, yeah, they could afford to go faster. And, yeah, Retzlaff does deal. And, yeah, the receivers feel more comfortable in that type of tempo. And yeah, it all looks good until Jake Retzlaff throws the pick.
Yeah.
And you can almost count on it coming. And so if I'm Aaron Roderick, I'm trying to keep his attention. I'm trying to let his mind really function, because I don't want him to make a quick release where it gets off the top of his finger and it sails my receiver. So I do like the tempo concept. I like the idea of it, but you got to understand what's going to come with that, especially in crunch moments. There's a high probability of an interception coming. So what do you want to? How do you want to go about it? What do you want to do? You want me to give my quarterback time, maybe run a mixture of hurry up, let him really pay attention to the coverages and be focused on his grip and his release points, or do we want to risk it? And there's the biggest part of me, Scotty, I want to risk it, because when they don't go tempo, you're going to score 3 points and a half.
I mean, if you want to compare the two halves, yes, the interception killed you, but you're not in that game unless you play that way in the second half.
In fact, you're probably in it even with that pick. You're in the lead with that pick in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're hitting tempo, and
that's a good point.
And if their defense was doing what their defense was doing in the second half, which, again, Chase told me there was no changes. But I don't feel that way. Didn't you feel like everything was softened?
There was not necessarily prevent, but it was let's just ride this thing out and get this car parked in the driveway kind of vibe. Uh-huh. And I don't know if it was a scheme or just the mindset of these guys, but it did feel like everybody was playing off a little bit more.
It did. And in the second half, I would say I'll give you the 4 biggest differences in the second half. 4 biggest. I think the most significant. Not what they did, because I do feel like they changed some things. But Caleb Etienne and Isaiah Jada sealed up the edges for protection. First half, they were abused. These two dudes, Prince Dorba and Clayton Smith, number 32 and number 10, did you see them close the edges in the first half? Like fast and often. And I was looking at Etienne, who I got coined as a Big 12, an all Big 12 performer.
Yeah.
And Jada, who was one of the highest graded tackles against Kansas, so the previous week. And they were turning corners and giving up. And so all of a sudden, those ends stepped in just a bit, and they didn't have as wide a rush, and they were getting jammed up. So those two were gigantic changes. And then the other two were Isaiah Glasker and Tyler Batty. Tyler Batty shutting down the edge, and Isaiah Glasker scraping and doing all kinds of damage. Glasker was spectacular in the second half. So that was the biggest changes. But let's just say for the sake of conversation, that tempo gives me another we'll just say 8 points.
Yeah.
So I'm able to pull down 11 points in the first half of that game. I'd rather go with the tempo
For sure.
and risk the pick.
Yep.
But I do feel like, that's 2 interceptions for Jake Retzlaff. One of them did come off of a deflection, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. And then the other one was just the
awful
overthrow. But Jake Retzlaff has now got 10 interceptions thrown on the year.
Yeah. Hans and Scotty. It's all right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is DJ and PK.
I'm going to do like Ute fans 15 years ago. I'm getting a Big 12 tat and flags. I love this conference.
I'll bet you get an ultra big flag.
Ute fans embrace it. You just did what BYU did. You struggled your first year in a big-time conference. See what you do next year.
And for a Ute fan, that was pretty mean.
It's not mean. It's a fact. They struggled in a big-time conference. How is that mean?
You know how it is.
I don't.
See, they were in a big-time conference, so there's in the transition.
I didn't say they had to make a transition. I just said they struggled in a big-time conference. I give opinion and I get ripped. And then I give a black and white fact and you say that's pretty mean.
Yeah, it was implied. We heard it.
Imply this. What are you talking about?
Imply this is always a good comeback.
Catch DJ and PK mornings from 6 to 10 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You're locked on to Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
That's right. Yeah!
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in Nate Dreiling, hoping to hear from him here momentarily, the head coach at Utah State. Aggies have now won 3 out of 4, and 2 of which in blowout fashion. Blew out Hawaii last week and then beat up on San Diego State. They were down 13-0 with about 3 minutes left to go in the second quarter. And all of a sudden, Bryson Barnes, who is the Mountain West Conference Offensive Player of the Week, steps in, and the Aggies have 6 touchdown drives and end up winning that game in blowout fashion over the Aztecs, 41-20.
Man, what an incredible game for them. And what an incredible game for Bryson. And it worries me a little bit, because you come on and you flash like that for a minute, and you're like, hey, bud, Logan really loves you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but why didn't I start and play the whole year? Because we love you so much that we wanted to keep you for next year.
Yeah, that next year is going to be a really special year for you.
Because if I'm any Mountain West Conference team that doesn't have a high-level returning starter,
yep,
I'm going to put together every penny I can, and Utah State should be able to match that with their NIL and Pac-12 introduction. So, but if I'm Washington State or if I'm Oregon State and I've got to have a quarterback, I'm looking even at that. I'm like, that guy could really do great things in a full year of eligibility.
And you look back at what he did at Utah, that signature win in the Coliseum against USC. I mean, he's got some crazy moments throughout his run.
The only time I saw him and thought, what is going on, was the bowl game against Northwestern.
Correct.
Because I called that bowl game, and I went into that game kind of saying, hey, this guy is special. This Bryson Barnes is special, and he didn't show up in the bowl game. But I've seen him show up for so many big games.
Yeah, just another incredible performance. Mountain West Conference Offensive Player of the Week, Bryson Barnes. And now it's time to check in with their head coach, Nate Dreiling.
It's time to talk Aggie football with the interim head coach of the Aggies, Nate Dreiling, on your exclusive home of Aggie football, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Time for our weekly chat with Nate Dreiling, head coach of Utah State, brought to you by Macy's. Happy shopping. Coach, 3 out of 4, back-to-back blowout victories. Congratulations, another fun one on Saturday.
Hey, thanks, Scotty. Hand, thanks for having me as well. That was a good performance. We're kind of getting hot at the right time, so see if we can tack one more together to finish this thing off right.
Well, I just saw the news come down from the Mountain West Conference that Bryson Barnes was awarded the Mountain West Offensive Player of the Week. What does that mean to him, and what does that mean to you, Coach?
I would say he's probably the first ever Mountain West Player of the Week to come in the second quarter off the bench. It's pretty remarkable. But the thing with Bryson, and I think everyone in Salt Lake knows this from his years at Utah, is he is a proven winner, and he is so dang tough, and he prepares harder than anybody in this building. So when his opportunity comes, man, he always takes advantage of it. I couldn't be more proud of him. What an unbelievable gutsy performance had to get this thing rolling at the end of that second quarter and follow it up for the second half he had.
When Spencer goes out with that injury, I got to imagine that's quite a safety blanket for you to have as a coach when you look over and say, all right, Bryson, go out there and do your thing, because he is a Mountain West Conference starting caliber quarterback as your backup. So when you have a guy like that, you probably don't blink an eye as a coach because you know you're in good hands.
Yeah, and that's what you get. You get a proven backup that's won a bunch of big games on the highest stage, and not many schools can say they have that in the country, right? And that's I think the awesome part about it is, especially with Coach Ceplo and his staff, of how they switch the game plan up to kind of tailor to what Bryson does best. And San Diego State just had a tough time catching up to that. That's where really when we pulled away.
So I know it's still early in the week, but is he probably your guy on Saturday, or is there a chance Spencer comes back?
Yeah, still holding out. We'll know more probably in the next 24 hours once we see how Spence throws the ball today at practice tonight. So, but either way, you know how it is, man. We got so much confidence whoever goes out there,
yeah.
Especially how well the run game's been playing. And so if we can keep that run game up, man, we'll get Hands or Scotty back there playing quarterback. I don't think it'll matter.
I'm eligible.
Hands maybe, me not so much.
Actually, my eligibility's burnt out. Scotty might have some. Coach, I wanted to mention this too. Back-to-back weeks holding opponents under 20 or under. Defense is stepping up and playing much better football, especially against Hawaii, but also against San Diego State. What's changed to give you guys a bit of a defensive punch in the arm?
I think the biggest thing has been, we've dealt with some injuries, so which everyone does, but you have to play a bunch of young players, and with that, comes growing pains. And whether you like it or not, you're going to make bad plays because we just weren't consistent enough, especially at front where those injuries occurred. So, with more plays and more reps and more games comes more maturity. And once you have that and you're doing your job at a high level of detail, that's when you find success and dang good football. So couldn't be more proud of the next man up mentality this team's had and just showing up and continuing getting better.
So outside of that meaningless touchdown late, and I know I shouldn't say that to you because all touchdowns are very important, but you give up that late touchdown with as you're bringing guys into the game to San Diego State. So for all intents and purposes, you held them to 13, and frankly, 10 of those points came on short fields, and the other 3 is when they had it at the goal line and you came up with the goal line stand. So even though you may see 20 on the board, I thought that was probably just as good, if not better, defensive performance in that game than you had against Hawaii.
Yeah, I think it was a very well all-around game in all 3 phases. We were able to, we had a couple short fields off a turnover, but other than that, we flipped the field a couple times, giving our offense a chance to start inside the 50 once. The punting game by Steven was unbelievable. So yeah. I think their defense played really well, but I think you saw a pretty dang complete football game in back-to-back weeks. That's what's most exciting, especially with this team and how far we've come, that now we're playing football like it's meant to be played, and it's kind of contagious, and the locker room's having fun doing it.
Well, this Colorado State game has gotten really interesting. It's a 7-4 team, 5-1 in conference play. They lost their first conference game against Fresno State in just a nail-biter. So it's a very good Colorado State team. You've got to go to Colorado State, probably a difficult place to play. I played there a couple times, had my worst game I ever played there. So just the absolute worst. The miserable weather, late November. They put like 55 points on us. Yeah, but this is the 90s, when 55 wasn't as cool as it is.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, back in those days, 55 wasn't cool. But I know that's a tough environment. But let's talk about this game, Coach. What does this game mean to you and these players?
Man, it has a chance to send the senior and upper class out the right way. Obviously, we're not playing for bowl games, and that's unfortunate, and this university and fan base deserve that. But we are playing good football, and you've seen an unbelievable amount of resilience, starting from this summer's coaching change to everything we've dealt with. So I think more so, man, this team is playing with so much pride for who they're representing and how they're doing it right now. And that's a chance to go out the right way. These seniors have been through a lot of coaching changes and turmoil here and there. And to get them a win as a last game, that would be a blast. And obviously it would be great for this fan base.
Short week, plus you throw Thanksgiving in the mix as well. How difficult is that to manage as a coach?
The big thing is, it comes down to, is the wife going to burn the turkey again on the deep-fat fryer, or how she's going to handle that and respond from last year. So hopefully she'll have a better performance. You know what you're talking about? That's what Hans was thinking. No, it is what it is. It's cool. We get to play a Friday afternoon game where not a lot of stuff is going to be on, so there's going to be a bunch of people watching it. And it's just you got to do the work and a little bit longer hours here and there, but ultimately, we decided about a month ago, when you're not winning football games, the worst thing you could do is be pissed off at the world. And we decided we're going to have a whole lot of fun finishing this thing up the right way. So that'll be the same message this week, and we'll keep things a little bit shorter to keep our legs fresh. And just go out there and play hard, see what happens.
Well, I love it.
Honey, if we're not winning, we're learning. So let's go back to the film and see what we can do to be better this year.
If we don't learn from our mistakes, then maybe we need to make some changes.
Yeah, no doubt. Exactly right.
So, Coach, Scotty just mentioned winning 3 of the last 4 and an opportunity with Colorado State to put 4 of the last 5 together, which is an incredible feat. I'm just curious where you currently stand, and you've got the interim tag and, the great relationship with the school. You've put your heart into it. You took over in a tough situation. Scotty and I have mentioned this multiple times. If we could have it our way, we'd love to see that interim tag lifted. Where are you in that process, and how much conversation goes on from this point?
No, I don't think it's fair for these players for me to talk about that. I will just kind of say how we've handled it and what my approach has been. Ever since I got this job, it's the only thing that crosses my mind when I have to make a decision is what's best for these players and how can I make them successful. And that's how I've answered every single question, not what do I need to do to get this job. So, after next Friday, we can sit and talk and figure all that out. But my heart and soul is making sure that we can end this thing the right way for our guys. And until that last game's played and the last second's gone off, that'll just be my mindset.
Very fair.
How difficult is it to prepare for this Colorado State offense with what they like to do offensively and how they spread the field and throw it up and down the field quite a bit?
It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a contrast of styles because they're about dead last in the country in pace of play, and our offense is one of the fastest offenses in the country. So they have an offense that wants to stay on the field and slow things down, and we have the complete opposite. So it's going to come down to, Scotty, third downs. If our offense has to sit on the bench for 10 minutes, that's an issue with how we play. All right? We have to be able to get off the field and get them back out there and keep them rolling. So if we can do that, man, I think we have a chance to have a lot of fun. If our offense has to try to jumpstart every single time, then it's going to be tough to sustain success.
Well, Coach, always a pleasure. It was great chatting with you throughout the season, and looking forward to one more ride coming up this Saturday at Fort Collins.
No
Good
coaches
luck.
show?
No coaches show this week.
No
Coach, you going to be okay with that?
I know. Hans, who does the cooking there? I'm sure there's a lot of consumers at that house. Are you going to be cooking on Thursday or what?
They don't let me in the kitchen. My mom actually lives in a house right behind us, so she's there, and she is the cook du jour. She's the top end, and then my wife is the assistant. My sister-in-law is incredible. They just keep my fat butt out of the kitchen.
You are far out of down the totem pole, huh?
Way down.
I hope you guys enjoy it.
They don't even let me make the cranberry sauce.
Coach, appreciate it.
Yeah, you guys have been awesome. Appreciate you guys. Take care.
Thanks,
Got
Coach.
it. There he is. Coach Nate Dreiling. Man, I love that dude.
If he found a way to beat Colorado State.
You got to have that we talked about it yesterday on the podcast. You got to have that conversation.
That's a really good Colorado State team.
It's a really good Colorado State team.
And, you have to look at this. So you hold Hawaii to 10 points and under 50 yards rushing.
Yep.
San Diego State got some yards, but as you mentioned, those yards came late.
Yep. A lot of garbage yardage.
By all intent and purposes, it was 13 points in that game.
Yeah.
So if they beat Colorado State, if the defense shows well,
and you have all these returning players,
and the offense does well, and you can say, okay, look at why my defense did good. These 7 guys had X amount of reps and starts coming into this season. Now look what they're doing, their development. Look at my offense and what they've done all year long, and tell me that I couldn't put together a 6-2. You play 8 conference games in this new Pac-12?
Well, and that'll start 2 years from now.
Oh, that's right. That's 2026.
Yeah.
So one more year Mount West Conference.
Of 8 games, yeah.
So one more year of 8 games. So who are you to tell me I can't put together 6-2 if I get a full spring?
Yep.
I get all the backing. I get the confidence in you lifting the tag and extending. I don't know, man. If he finds a way to beat Colorado State, I don't know how you don't have a really solid conversation with everybody. Like, how did you feel it went? How did you feel it went? Bring every voice into the room and just say, is this something we can do long term?
Yeah.
Because the only experience you have is what we've done on air and what you've done with him personally. The only experience I have is watching him as a recruiter and from afar as a head coach, and then our conversations. Outside of that, I do not talk to him.
Yeah.
And so I look at it from a perspective of I would be more than proud to have my son play for him.
Well, and the recruits love him.
The recruits love him. And if you lifted the tag off of him, you're not going to see any wavering. Especially from my kid, from anybody I'm associated with. My nephew just committed.
Yeah.
Wait,
Pojo?
Yeah, Pojo committed.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
State's leading tackler.
Oh, congrats to him. That's so cool.
Absolute beast. Paul Latu, one of the best middle linebackers this state's seen. And so I know that those guys aren't wavering. So if that tells you something, that tells you at least how amazing this crew has done as recruiters.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like, okay, yeah, I want to send my son to a school that wins. I've always felt like you can win in Logan. But if he wins 4 of the last 5 against liked opponents, not this USC, Utah, and then, by the way, you go USC, Utah, you just throw them into this grinder, and then you got to take this long road trip. And that's where the trouble started. Was after USC and Utah, you take that long road trip to Temple, and that's where the trouble started. It was you shouldn't have lost to Temple.
Yep. Temple's the one that hurts. New Mexico, when you had the big lead and then you couldn't get stops.
Well,
but then we look at New Mexico. New Mexico beat Washington State.
Right. That's the Bronco Mendenhall effect. So I guess I'm just putting together a picture saying, at least look at it.
Yeah.
If I'm Diana Sabo, I'm at least looking at it really, really detailed.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone, live here at Tim Daly Mazda Southtown. We'll talk more about what they're offering for you coming up next. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hey, bro. You hear us every day with our crazy opinions.
Hey, what you doing?
Well, now it's time to hear from you.
Hey, great show.
Download the KSL Sports app and fire off your thoughts with the call-in tab on the bottom of your screen.
Your show is fantastic. It's the one that captivates me the most.
You can tell PK to stop singing.
She bangs! She bangs!
Let Jake and Ben know what you really think of the Jazz.
Woo!
Tell Hans and Scotty about your favorite barbecue spot or what color of tie JJ should be wearing on TV. The best entries will be played on the air. Download the KSL Sports app now and hit the call-in button to let your voice be heard.
I think you guys do an incredible job.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Looking for the latest on the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, and Aggies? Yeah! We've got you covered. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hope you're all having a great Monday. A lot to break down, a lot to look at as Utah, BYU both suffering a couple of tough losses over the weekend. But you know who did not suffer a loss, Hans? The Utah Jazz, who got a win against the Knicks, 121-106. Even the Jazz, when they're trying to lose, find a way to screw it up. No, I'm joking. That was nice.
Got to get one every once in a while, don't you?
You got to win one every now and then.
Every once in a while, you need to pull something off.
Again, you expect big performances from guys like, you look at, Larry Markkinen coming up big. I mean, you go down the line, these dudes just find ways to Larry Markkinen's still an all-star player. He's still going to give you all-star performances.
Got all-star numbers, doesn't he?
Yeah, he ends up with 34 points on the night. You got Sexton with 25. You got John Collins, who very quietly, and I think you hit this right on the head the other day, John Collins is going to be a really nice asset to have for Danny Ainge come trade deadline.
He's a trade deadline guy.
Yep.
He's going to be a real addition for a team that is there, and you're going to be able to leverage something out of them for it, I think.
Yep.
And he did that through the first 6-7 games, made a big jump, but he's kept it going. So happy to see that. I also wanted to mention that the Utah Hockey Club found a win on Saturday against the Penguins and suffered a heartbreaking loss against Toronto last night.
Yeah.
Just could not find the net. They end up 1-0. And actually, no, I think it ended up 3-2, didn't it?
3-2, I think, was the final.
It was 3-2.
Yeah.
Because I believe Boston was 1-0.
Yep.
So they end up losing a heartbreaker 3-2. I know it was by 1 goal. And they currently sit 1-2 on this 4-game road trip that they're on. They finish things up tomorrow at Montreal. So hopefully
what did we say? We said 1-3. Is okay, but you'd love 2-2.
2-2 would have been a miracle.
Yeah.
Because just the level of opponent that you're seeing. But 1-3 is kind of what I expected, and they did pick up that one against Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
You know how good Toronto is. Montreal would be the second most likely to pick up out of that 4-game road trip. It's possible. If they could come back 2-2, I think that'd be a
huge,
pretty good grab for them.
Yep. All right, Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.